Yeah, I gave you it. Yeah.
You know what? We're being recorded right now because I see a smirk over there because I know something's going on.
No, it's only 2
No,
o'clock.
we're on. Hi, this is the DLLS Stars Podcast. Yep. They get it every time. They get a warning. Hey, we're on in 15 seconds. And then they just start talking again. It's nice, right? It shows that we like each other.
I can't wait 15 seconds.
But we can't wait. So let's start the show right now.
So, Kevin, did you see the Stars show on Monday?
No.
You want to know what happened on it?
What happened?
Oh, no.
This is a clear abuse of the super chat system, and unfortunately, the call is coming from inside the house in this instance.
We don't have to say it. Or do we have to read
I
it?
think we have to read it out loud,
I
don't we?
think we have to read it, right?
Oh,
From
man, barf.
GM Ben Pavelski. That's crap.
They like to go. Sean's boring.
They like to go with the fun, silly questions for you.
It's boring.
It's boring. He just gets right to the point. He's got great answers. When you got your ass hanging around and fans and everything else, you're not wearing your underwear.
So there's the picture.
Oh, yeah.
It is Wednesday, October 9th, and this is the DLLS Dallas Stars Podcast. Thanks for joining us here at the Lounge Studio. And we're
Who's
not
that
sure.
guy?
Who's the new guy?
We think that might be Sean. He changes his beard length so drastically that he's back to being confused for a high school reporter at a football game in Texas, which is true, by the way.
That has happened. Yes, I have been covering a high school football game in Texas before, and was asked what grade I was in, and then I answered and they were. Yes, they assumed I was a high school student, which was not fun. But I mean, I have to do something to be unboring, so that's kind of the that just shows some versatility here.
Well, maybe Luddy's just a little protective of his damn Discord segment. You filled in and he had to chirp you back. So for Craig Ludwig, Sam Nestler, and Sean Shapiro here today, I'm Owen Newkirk. Thanks for joining us. We have a lot to get to today, so let's get right into it. Jason Robertson was the feature of an article Sean wrote for D Magazine. No, it's not all DLLS.com, but it was still a really good piece. And I thought it'd be a great way for us to start our final show before the regular season begins for Dallas, as they play tomorrow night at Nashville against the Predators. And your thesis, Sean, which I should just let you lead off, but we'll say it quickly, was all about whether you were going to get Jason Robertson from 2 years ago, where he broke the 100-point mark for the first time in Dallas Stars history. And then last year he became more well-rounded, but he didn't hit anywhere close to that. He had a pretty big point regression. So the thought is, what Jason Robertson are we going to see? Now, this is the second time in the last 3 seasons that he hasn't played a single preseason game, but it worked pretty well last time.
Yeah, I really hope Jason Robertson has a similar season points-wise to 2 years ago, because then we can all make the case that preseason should be shortened, and we just use Jason Robertson not playing preseason games as the golden example of why. But yeah, as you mentioned, kind of that piece, one of the big, for me, it's the fascinating thing, because we know a lot about this team going in. We've learned about a lot of different pieces, and Robertson missed the entire preseason, and last year he became an impactful. He was always an impactful player, and no matter which version of Jace Robinson you talk about, the one that's a little more well-rounded, the one that's a goal scorer, either way, the Stars are a Stanley Cup contender either way. And it's one of those where, if he falls into either of these camps, it's fine. But for me, it's just going to be fascinating to see if he can really kind of step into the spot where he can kind of be a bit of both. And I'm curious to hear Lud's thoughts on this, because he saw Modano up front. Like, one of the things I always push back against when it comes to the Modano narrative is people talk about how Mike gave up offense and he gave up this for defense. And while the point totals, yes, that happened. But hockey itself, I feel that was a more reflective of the game itself. Mike Modano, the year he had 93 points, was the 15th leading scorer in the NHL. The year the Stars won the Stanley Cup and he had 82 or 83 or whatever it was, he was the 13th leading scorer in the league. So even though Mike Modano, quote unquote, gave up some offense and stepped back and became a more well-rounded player, he was still one of the scariest offensive players in the league the entire time. And for me, this is, can Jason Robertson be that guy where he can be that volume offensive player and still be this all-around guy? And I'm curious to see if he can do it, because that to me is the kind of Modano test, and I'm curious of Lud's thoughts on that, because that he saw it firsthand better than all of us with Mike.
Oh, you're
he's-
waiting for me to say something, aren't you?
He's smirking. Absolutely.
No, I agree with you, Sean, with all of that. But I will tell you,
Yeah.
the pitch and the sell to Mo was different than that. And it wasn't about giving up offense. It was about learning how to be a good penalty killer, learning how to play against the top lines, because he knew, being one of those guys, that the puck may be easier to turn pucks over, and top guys don't back check as hard as the guys that are supposed to take care of the work. And so Mo, it took a while for Mike to buy into that concept, but then all of a sudden when he was killing penalties, and it was at a time when, you guys remember, it was in a time when it wasn't your top players that were killing penalties. And I think at that time it was about, let's not get these guys hurt. You know, it's okay getting the bottom three forwards and 5 and 6 defensemen as long as they could do it. It's okay if those guys aren't in the lineup. But what it did is that by putting top players on the power play or on the penalty kill, all of a sudden there was a threat. And the one thing about guys being those kind of players and being on the penalty kill, they anticipate. They know where plays are going to happen. They know the lanes that you would typically go through. So it was an opportunity for the top guys to pick some of them passes and those plays off and go the other way with it. And then when you're playing against top lines and you turn pucks over, we back check. Sometimes we do some, and credit to Mo as he bought into it. And all of a sudden he went from exactly what you said he was, this high flying Mike Modano jersey flapping in the wind and only cared about goals. But now he was bought into both ends of the rink. And that's when we actually became a better team.
It's funny you mentioned penalty kill, because we spoke to assistant coach Elaine Nazardine again a few days ago, and we talked a little bit about the penalty kill and how he thought it looked. And he actually mentioned 2 points to that. One, I asked him about what you just said. Does he have any worry about, especially a guy like roopehintz, who's had these injuries in the past, of him standing up there and killing penalties? Because we know he's great on the penalty kill, but the problem is, would that lead to an injury that keeps him out all of a sudden for a playoff series or things like that? So I just was curious. They had that not in their minds at all. Mostly because of the way the system is played. They're not asking their guys to stand in front of 100-mile slap shots. They're hoping to deter shots and force shots down from the lane. But that was an interesting point, 1. 2, Nazardine also said that Jason Robertson sits in on every single penalty killing meeting.
Why not?
Which, 1, didn't surprise me at all, knowing Jason Robertson, knowing how much video he watches and all that kind of stuff. But 2, it's kind of like a two-parter there, where I know that Jason Robertson's using that for power play success during the season. But I don't know if it was you or someone else that brought it up. I'm also not so sure he's not using that to beat the penalty kill in practice, just to do it against those guys in practice because he loves beating them so much.
Well, I think it works both ways. I think that it might be fun because he's competitive, but it also will be something he can translate on the ice for games.
Yeah. Well, again, when you mentioned Roope, if it were me, and I agree both sides of that, I don't want roopehintz blocking shots. But now the penalty kills are a little bit more aggressive, and so you're over there. But when you do get stationary, and if you can be the top guy on the diamond, and what you're really deterring is you're trying to get the puck to move from a good shooting spot in the middle of the ice and move it to the flanks. So as long as you can be in a lane, they're probably not trying to shoot it through you, so there's less of a chance of getting hit with a puck. Just a small chance.
What's funny, Luds, is that because more guys block shots than they ever used to, their power plays are less apt to take that one-timer or slap shot from the blue line, which then means there are less pucks to be blocked.
Exactly. And then when they are, or because of the way that the top players think and anticipate, and I can see why a guy like Robo would want to do that. He would want to sit in there looking different penalty kills, different power play situations to get to know what that particular power play does. Because what you're trying to do as a penalty killer, every team has a plan A. They have, this is our go-to play, and you try to take that away from them. And so that's what you try to do and make them go to plan B. Well, when you can anticipate that, and you have a guy like Robo or Hintz or Tyler Sagan, Jamie, guys that can translate those breakaway opportunities into goals, you want those guys picking off pucks and going the other way, because there's 4 guys down below the tops of the circles, and the odds are the defenseman that made that pass isn't catching you. So you want your best guy going down on a breakaway. And so I think there's 2 sides of the thing. And again, Sean's exactly right. But the thing is Mo had to buy in that, and credit to him for doing that. But the sell was a smart sell to Mike. And you're going to get more minutes, Mo. You're not going to get just your normal 21 or 22 it is. You're going to pick up another 4 or 5 minutes. And when you have top players that are like, because we talk about it all the time, with the money and that they're made, they don't want to see their big guys not playing a lot, or sitting in the stands. And the players know that. The only thing you can actually take away from a player nowadays that makes that kind of money is their ice time. That's what affects them the most. And if you can promise them more ice time, the buy-in is a little easier.
Yeah, and I think it was talking about Wyatt Johnston. Nasruddin said, I've never seen a player turn down ice time. So they want to play on the penalty kill if they can. It gives them more chances. But something interesting with Jason as well, going back to watching video and being in penalty kill meetings and all these things, is I actually met Jason's, I think he's technically his skills and video coach, personally, his private coach, Tommy Menino at Skate the other day. And we were asking him some questions about general stuff with Jason and what he does. He said that pretty much like a week after the season ends, Jason and Nick Robertson are up in Michigan on the ice 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. No breaks, no days off. And 4th of July, was the only weekday they took off all summer because the rink was closed. So things like that it just seems like Jason Robertson's been playing hockey all year round his entire life. We've talked about the story of how they moved and all the things they've done, and he's taken that into his NHL career. And I bring that up because while we may think that Robertson's taking on a little bit of that, a little less for more aspect that the Stars are taking on as a team, he's still watching video 3 times a week during the season on how he can, the little nuances of ways he can score goals. He has no plan of letting his offense
The other
go
thing
into
is,
the back burner.
stats are part of the negotiating. Everybody knows that. And all stats are part of it. You don't get a minus when you're killing a penalty, but if you can score a shorthanded goal, you get a plus and a goal.
And that helps.
That might help at some point.
Sean, one of my favorite things that Patrick Sharp told us when he was with the Dallas Stars was he had a lot of success, especially early in his career, scoring shorthanded goals, because there was, he said, sort of a half second to a second and a half delay for guys that are on the power play switching their mentality to defense. Meaning, if he could create a turnover and get the jump on them, he could usually get a step on the forward or the defender that's at the blue line on the power play, because they're all thinking about nothing but offense because it's a power play. And so he goes, boy, if you could just get in that lane and make the jump, that you have them, because they have to take even a split second of time mentally to switch into, I got to play defense again.
Well, and the other part of it too is most power plays now across the NHL, very rarely is it a 2-defender power play. Almost every team is running 4 forwards, 1 defender. And so a lot of the times when you do get that coming back at it, it's a defender who's used to defending 99% of the time with another defender there. So all of a sudden there's that quick mental switch of, okay, I've got to adapt where I don't have someone there. Or it's a forward who is in an awkward position they're not normally in. So that comes into play big too. And like to kind of connect this back with what Sam was talking about with Jason Robertson sitting on meetings and him watching film. Jason Robertson, if you guys ever want to ISO in on Jason Robertson during a game, Jason Robertson watches film mid-game. We talk about like the iPad kids, like the amount of time, like Jason Robertson, I don't know how he after every single shift, you see him get to the bench, he grabs the iPad, he watches his last shift. He is an intake, like the robot thing to me is actually fitting, because he very much is an input in how do I process this as quickly as possible type person. Like I've talked to Jason before. There's times where he's taken that data that he's taken in a game and used it later in a game to beat something else. Like that's why one of the really fun things about Jason Robertson for me, where even though we didn't see him all preseason, and even though we know the physical, it's not like all of a sudden he's going to become a super slick skater or anything like that. He is always going to be an adaptable player, which is one of the reasons that I find him so fascinating, because I think if you did put him in that role, we're like, hey, we're going to use him on the penalty kill, we're going to do this. I think if you did do that, I think it might obviously take a couple penalty kills to get used to it, but I think he could do it because that's the way he processes and uses information. That's one of the reasons that, like, this Stars team, obviously the big story we're all tracking with everything is, will they be able to get the job done, get past where they've been last year, and be playing deep into June? That's the biggest story. But there's so many subplots to me of where can all these people kind of fall in that maybe put that team slightly over the edge, where it might be that little piece. And to me, that's where Jason Robertson plays a huge piece in all of this.
Hey,
Sean,
Luddy,
I was so down on Jason. Speaking of Jason, you talk about the iPad
Yeah.
thing. When I first saw him, I was so down on him watching it on TV and stuff.
When did you first see him?
His first game.
His
when he
first
played.
game. So back
And I
in,
see him go back.
you're talking about 1920.
That was the year I was born. No, I'm talking about
2019, 2020.
But will you stop interrupting? So, but Sean, the first time I saw that, and you're so right, I'm like, what the hell is he doing? But I don't even think he sits down sometimes. As soon as he comes off the ice, he reaches over, grabs the iPad, and again, there's been others that have done it. I'm like, you have to watch the game in order to know what's going on in the game.
Yeah.
But how wrong I was, because they are analyzing themselves and they look at the play. They know what they got to do better next time. So it's just the way it is. I mean, there's so many times when I'm at a game and I watch a line come off, and I love it when line mates, we try to get our players, when you come back, talk to each other, sit down, talk about that shift, what we could have done. Now what they're doing is they're all huddled around the iPad. They have no idea what's going on the ice, but that's the way they process the game. And they're great players, and obviously it works. And you talk about the fun things and everything else. I just want to mention Jason Robertson, since we're talking about Robo. He likes to fly under the radar when it comes to charity stuff. He's got JR's whole, hero program. He's worked with the United Heroes. He does so much for the military kids and their families. It's incredible. And his brother does too. He's brought in Nick, and they've done a couple camps and things like that together. This was actually an American Samoan family that came in. He buys tickets for them. He buys parking passes for them. He usually meets them all after games. And I don't think that we probably talk enough about all the players that do so many good things, off the ice and away from the rink, and they don't ever talk about it. They just go out and they do their business. And
Well,
it's
that's
great
not why
to see
they're
them
doing
young
it.
guys.
They're not doing it for their own PR.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's nice. I mean, from all the things that he does for the military families, especially what they've all gone through in the military themselves. And, again, for a young kid, and they make tons of money, to be able to take the time and go ahead and do things like that, it's awesome.
Yeah, well, he came from a great family, a great hockey family, as we just talked about, and he and his brother are both great hockey guys, and that's becoming more and more common, which is amazing in the sport. But it's always good to point that out when there is someone who's striving to be better in those areas.
Love to talk more about that, including how different he's been at carrying the mantle of being a non-traditional hockey player. Jason Robertson, I remember when he first got to Dallas, he didn't have a great answer for what's it like to be Filipino as part of your heritage playing in the NHL, and there are very few of them. And he just kind of said, I just feel like I'm an American kid from California playing hockey. He has learned to embrace and talk about that and be part of the was it the Asian Pacific Islander, that whole sub sort of sect of people who are help grow that. And I think that just shows some of his maturity as he goes into his NHL career.
Can I tell a quick story about the Robertsons real quick?
Sure. We're way past time anyway.
No, I know, but this is we work in a business where it can be a media to player relationship can be very stringent at times, right? And it can be, people can not like each other. So when I was at my last full-time employer, soon after I lost, and as we mentioned earlier, Nick and Jason work out of Michigan in the summer. And so the last time, and this was around the time Nick was dealing with, I think it was an injury, but basically I lost a job. I lost a job at an employer. And I put it out there publicly, and about 30 minutes after I put it out publicly, I got a text from Hugh Robertson, Jason's dad. And he was in Michigan at the time. And Hugh and I had coffee that day about 2.5 hours after I publicly announced I lost a job. And we didn't talk about Jason. We didn't talk about Nick. We didn't talk about hockey. It was just, hey, I know you just had a really crummy, public, terrible thing happen to you. Let me buy you a cup of coffee. And so that is just to give you an idea of just kind of where Jason and his family come from. That's Jason's dad, who, for me, at a time when I was the person I've said bad things about his son. I've talked about how he doesn't finish, I've talked about how he needs to be a better player and needs to be this and that and everything like that. And a very human interaction, very human thing, just a cup of coffee. So that's a story that I wanted to just share as we're talking about all of this and talking about where Jason comes from in that family, because they're very, very special people.
And Sean, just looking at you while you're telling the story, it meant a lot to you, no?
Oh yeah, ton. Like that's one of those things where
such a, not small, that's not the right word, but didn't take a ton of effort for him to do that. But he makes the day, and who knows what else to someone like Sean. It's just great people in hockey, and that's why I really said great hockey family, great hockey people all around.
We're going to segue from that to trashing on Sean's picks. Actually, we're going to move that a little bit later in the show. Up next, let's talk about Alex Ovechkin and can he hit that huge NHL record or not. That's next here on the DLLS Dallas Stars Podcast.
This is going to be my favorite sleeper read ever because hockey is back. So Sleeper can now be talking about hockey. So I can stop saying names that I don't know how to say, and I can actually talk about hockey players. So Sleeper is your best fantasy league out there, but also best for picks. Tonight, hockey is back. Well, kind of again. We had our first day of the regular season, figure that one out, yesterday, and it didn't disappoint. Now we get to follow that up with a 5-game slate tonight on Wednesday. I have Nathan MacKinnon of the Colorado Avalanche with an anytime goal. If you hit on that pick, you get 1.73 times your money. So just do it because it's Nathan MacKinnon. He's going to score. If you think you have what it takes, download the Sleeper app and use the code DLLS Stars to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today.
Let's talk about Shady Rays. Get ready for the fall season that is actually almost about to feel like fall in Dallas. Maybe next week. It's supposed to be in the 90s this weekend still. But you can do so with quality shades. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them a perfect choice for all outdoor activities. They also have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style, and they probably even have the style in your favorite team's colors. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code DLLS for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. That is shadyrays.com. Use the code DLLS. All right. Let's talk about Ovi, the
I'm
great
ready
8.
to be 300,001, by the way. Are you on my Shady Rays?
We're working on it.
Okay.
You,
All right, just wanna
you missed
reminder.
the first one, but we're going to try it.
Okay.
We have to get somebody to respond. But there's the big debate last year, and I was part of it when it comes to Alexander Ovechkin, that he probably was not going to reach Wayne Gretzky's record. He has the all-time goals record for a career regular season, 894 goals. Then Ovechkin, who just turned 39 this September, he was 38, was really slumping out of the gates. Didn't play well. He scored 8 goals in his first 40 games last year, including a 14-game goal drought, which was the longest of his NHL career. Then he scored against the Dallas Stars. In Dallas, I remember it because I was watching him in the morning skate. I watched him in that game. And I remember thinking, I don't think he's going to get it. I think the age is starting to catch up to him. He's just not what he was before. I remember him being an absolute freight train out on the ice, skating up and down all over the place. He would hit guys. He was terrifying. Every time Ovechkin hit the ice, you were aware of it. In this game, which was January 27th of this year, I didn't see it, but then he scored. And guess what he did? He scored the next 6 straight games, including that game against Dallas. And he finished with 23 goals over his final 39 games of the year. And he didn't hit 40 goals. He only had 31, but he went from looking like he may not get 15 goals last year to getting over 30. So the question to you guys, I got lots of numbers. I looked things up. Do you think Alex Ovechkin can break Wayne Gretzky's record? And will he in the next 2 years, because he has 2 more years left on his contract? Well, John doesn't think so.
He actually, going back to what you were talking about, I thought he looked out of shape, and it was maybe Father Time, whatever, but it looked like he was out of shape, slowing down. And then all of a sudden, not the game that you're speaking of, but the last part of the year when you got to see him play, he just looked like a different guy. Yes, I think he's going to break the record. 2 years ago, even 3 years ago when they started talking about it, I was like, no way, not a chance is this going to happen. But he's not going to do it this year, I don't think. And again, like you mentioned, he had 23 goals in the last 30-some games. I can see him getting close to that mark, to the 25 to 30 goal mark, maybe this year. And then I think it's next year, probably next year before Christmas that he does. But I was in the other camp for a long time, and then when you start getting that close to it, and I had a chance when Gretz was here, and he's a very upfront and genuine kind of guy, and I just said, that record, what do you think? He goes, oh, he's going to do it. And when Wayne Gretzky says something, you probably ought to believe him, but you could tell he almost wanted him to break it. I left that and I'm like, I think he actually wants him to do it. But that's who Wayne Gretzky is. If you ever have a chance to be around the dude, he's just, everything is sunny and rosy, and he wants everybody to do well. He wants everybody else to be in the record book more than he is, which will never happen. But the point is, I do believe he's going to do it now, but it'll take him a year and a half.
I think he does it 100%. But with a two-part answer, I think that if the Capitals are to be anywhere near a playoff team, he needs to break that record this year. What is he, 42 from breaking
he needs
it? 41
to tie and 42 to break it.
Yeah, so
remember, he scored 42 goals in the 22-23 season 2 years ago.
Yep.
So it's not as if he hasn't done it since he was 34, 35.
He's capable, but I don't think that team's going to be very good, so he's not going to have a ton of help. But that's my first answer. If they want to be in, he needs to do it. The second one is looking at last year. You mentioned that January 27th, he was actually fourth in the NHL after that point with 22 goals in 32 games. After
think
that
about
January.
that. He had been on an 8-game goal drought, which was his second longest of the season at that point. The 14 was his career long earlier that year. And Luddy's absolutely right. He said, he goes, he looked like he was out of shape. I thought so too, whether it's out of shape or just age. But then it's almost as if the dam broke, the monkey off the back with that goal against the Stars, because then he ripped off goals in 5 more games after that. He had a couple 2-goal games later. I guess to me, I think he's capable of doing it this year, but to me, he seems like he's the anchor negatively that is pulling the Capitals the other direction.
That's why I want to ask you guys this question. What Sam just said. He said if the Capitals are going to make the playoffs this year, he's going to have to break that record. Do you think he cares about making the playoffs? Is that first and foremost to him? Or do you think it's the record?
It's a tough one because
it's hard to know. I mean, it's hard to get
he's so competitive.
Don't you think it's number one for him to break the record? It's not really number one.
Maybe for the team.
No. I think for Ovi it probably is now because he's accomplished everything else, right? He's scored all the goals. He's won a Stanley Cup, so that he isn't chasing that.
And his contract, he's got 2 years.
Including
left.
He's probably a little realistic about where
so
the
isn't
team
the
is.
timing kind of
He's also making $9.5 million against the cap, which is a lot of money, but that's also the kind of money you expect a guy to
deporting him again.
Literally contribute in a major way. And I'm not sure, Sean, do you think for as much talent as he has, is he still a guy that's valued as carrying that offense? I don't think he is.
To me, so to answer the question is yes and yes. I think he will get there. And to follow up on Lud's point, I think one of the cool things we will see from Wayne Gretzky once it happens. So once he's probably within 3 goals of the record, one of the things Gordie Howe did when Wayne broke his record was Gordie Howe basically made sure he was there for when the record was broken. It was a very classy move of Gordie Howe to be there. I wanted to be there to witness Wayne Gretzky's record. And I know Wayne has talked about when Ovechkin is kind of in that spot, he will make sure that he's doing kind of the right thing for the game to be there. So that'll be kind of cool. I don't think we will see Wayne Gretzky attending every Capitals game until next season. I think next season is when it happens. For me, the most interesting thing about Ovechkin last year, it's not the goal total. It's the amount of shots that are not getting through. And that's the spot where I kind of look at him. So last year he played 79 games. He had 272 shots on that. 2 years prior, in the 2 prior full seasons, he had 294, 334. This is a guy who, when he was 30 years old, was taking 400 shots on net a year. He actually had more shot attempts last year than he did in years he had 300 plus shots. Like, he's just become a more predictable player.
Yeah.
And that's the spot. And that's the thing about Ovechkin. Like, when you ask about him being kind of the linchpin of an offense. I mean, one of the things that's incredible to me about Ovechkin's career, and first is the positive. Let's talk about the positive. He's gone from this dynamic force, one of the greatest on the rush power forwards we've ever seen. That's what he was at his peak. But you can only do that for so long, right? So he did that into his early 30s. And he always had that I'm waiting by the bus on the power play shot on the power play. That was always part of his game. Then he somehow turned that into the centerpiece of everything. So when he breaks this goals record, that will be one of the most impressive things. He did it in multiple ways because he did adapt in that way. But he has now reached the part, in my view, where whether it's the game's caught up, whether it's he's gotten slower, whatever you want to call it, Ovechkin is just much more predictable of a player. Not as many shots get through. He's going to get there because he's probably going to get about 30 power play goals over the next 2 years. He's going to get the space on that alone. So he only needs about a dozen even strength goals, and if 4 of them are empty netters, you only need 8 even strength goals. So that's going to happen. But can the Capitals compete if they are focused on pushing the puck for him to get goals? And I don't think that's the case because
I was just going to say that.
And to Lud's point on this isn't just an Ovechkin thing. The owner there, or am I drawing a complete blank on his name? Owner of the Washington, Ted Leonsis. He is the biggest Ovechkin supporter you will find. He has talked it like for him, Ovechkin breaking the goals record will be a Capitals team achievement for the way Leonis looks at his business. When you think about it that way, that is when you know that this is going to be something that everything's going to be built around. I mean, for the Capitals, from a ticket sales interest perspective, one of the best things to happen for them this year, Ovechkin goes and gets like 30-something goals this year. So then he's only got like 14, 15, and then you can sell the Ovechkin goal chase. The next year becomes all about the Ovechkin goal chase, and you can push all that. Like, that's the best case scenario for the Capitals. And that's the best case, and I bet that's what Leonis would love to see happen. So I know people like to say, oh, the main goal is to win and get into the playoffs. And yes, that is going to be a goal for most of the people on the team. But a lot of that organization, having Alex Ovechkin above Wayne Gretzky's name on the goal record is going to be a huge Capitals team achievement, right or wrong.
You guys are wizards on your computers. Can you pull up how many empty net goals Wayne Gretzky has had in his career and what Ovi's had in his career?
I can.
I'm just curious. It's even close.
Yeah.
It seemed like Ovi would have more, but I don't know.
So Gretzky had 56.
Sean's even faster because he already had his keyboard.
Because Ovechkin beat that record last year. Because Ovechkin scored his 57th last year to beat Gretzky's.
About the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
But keep in mind that's about the same, and that's 42 more or whatever that Sean said will be 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's interesting too, Sean. The Capitals they're not sacrificing being a playoff team or a good contender for this record. Let's be straight about that. They weren't really a playoff team last year. They just got in at minus 25 or whatever. And I think they're not going to be much better this year. So yes, that makes a lot of sense, but they're also not. It's not like they're like, you know what, we could win a cup this year, but let's just focus on Alexander Ovechkin and really try to get the record. I'm not saying you're saying that. I just mean it's important to note that they understand realistically where their franchise is, and they know they have the option to buy in. They have him 2 more years of this contract. Why not buy in, get this record, celebrate it like you just mentioned, and make it a huge deal? But it will be interesting because, like Sean said, he looked bad at times last year, and I think it's because of what you mentioned. Some of his shots just so easily blocked or so easily poked away that normally would do that, and it's because he's just not creating as much free space.
The Ovechkin record, Sean was referencing 57 for Ovi, 56 for Gretzky. Third place is Marian Hossa with 40 empty net goals. Wow. So there's a huge gap between 1, 2, and 3.
It's for me. It's just, again, I talk about distractions all the time, and the focus will be on Ovi. And again, he's going to spend a minute 57 on the power play, and every time they are going to have him out there at the end of the game and for the empty netter. What does Ardell got to say?
We got a super chat. $8.08, which is all about Ovechkin today. Ardell says, I wouldn't bet against Ovechkin breaking the record this year. Dude is hockey Thanos. Inevitable. Acknowledge him, Luds.
Ardell, I'm going to give you your $8 and what is that? 8 cents or 88 cents? Cheapskate, 8.08. I'll give you that $8.08 back if he breaks the record.
There you go.
This year.
Acknowledged Ardell
Done.
more than Ovechkin. All right, so that's an interesting discussion. It's something we wanted to have before the season gets underway for the Capitals because now we start to watch and see what he's like this year, and we'll revisit this. But right now, coming up next on the show, we are going to look at some new faces in new places as the league really gets going here on the DLLS Dallas Stars Podcast.
This is my read, huh?
Oh,
Hold on. I got to pull it up.
Come on, Sean. The clock is ticking.
I got caught up. Hold on. Okay. What if I told you people would be ready for their ad reads? And if they were, they would tell you all about FOCO. This is a, geez, I'm sorry, guys. I deserve to be roasted for this. It is FOCO, pronounced FOCO, and it is, I think we should give them their money back, honestly. For how bad this ad read. No, this is terrible.
Does he just not have it?
You have about 20 more seconds if you want to salvage any of it.
I have it. Okay. Quick reset here.
Too late.
If you need to get fitted in the best sports gear around, you need to go to FOCO. You need to go use our code DLLS10 for 10% off. And you can get some of the best things you can. You can get jackets, beachwear, even overalls. There's something for fans of everything. And you know what? They're prepared to handle your order. Unlike some people who do not look at their notes and are not prepared at all, they are wonderful at their jobs, unlike myself. Go to FOCO. Use our code DLLS10.
Well, thank you, Sean. That was wonderful. Let's talk about DLLS Die Hard. Don't worry about Sean's performance because, look, our show is humming along now. And we think that you should support us, notwithstanding what just happened, because we not only have a great community with the Die Hard program, it gets you more and more connected with what we do, whether what Sean and Sam write about. How about this? We have a green swimming pool. T. Farmer wrote in, he basically said green pool for the Stars season equals dedication.
What?
He is one of our diehards. He's in the Discord.
Is it just dirty?
No,
I think actually green.
I think he died. I don't think he just let the algae
He needs to call Ludwig Pool Service to clean that baby up.
DLLS Die Hard program. Join it. All right. Now that we've gotten through that, let's give Sean a 2-minute minor. And
that's a major.
Boy,
it's definitely major.
That's bad. That was bad.
Season started obviously last weekend in Europe, but then really got going in the last couple of days. And really exciting to see some stuff. We're going to talk about the games that happened last night during our NHL News and Notes segment. But I thought it'd be fun to kind of go through some of the new faces and new places. And I think we have to start with Nashville. Now, we're not going to go through every team, and we'll talk more about the bigger names you think out there. And if some come up, you guys can just say, not interested, whatever. Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Brady Shea, Scott Wedgwood, all with the Preds. Stars will see the Preds tomorrow night in their opener. What do you guys think about the new names, new faces in the Music City?
Well, are we going to see Wedgwood tomorrow?
We'll have to wait. Stay tuned to our pregame show tomorrow night.
Oh, we saving something for
We're
tomorrow?
saving something.
Okay. Anxious to see what Stamkos does. I think with Forsberg, I think there's a couple people there that can get Stammer that shot in that spot that he loves. And I think I said this before, I think he's motivated from the standpoint of, there wasn't a contract done in Tampa Bay. And then the other one is, and I don't know if they're playing together, is going to be Jonathan Marchessault. I just think that both of those guys have a little, I don't want to say an axe to grind, but the clubs that they were with, that they won championships with, that had great careers with, are moving on for them. So I think there might be a year-long prove it. You done me wrong, and I should be there.
Yeah, it's one of those teams that I think I was just, whenever I get mad at sports, I just blame the Yankees because I just can't stand them. But the Yankees are, to me, are the team that's going to go spend all the money in the world and then just be bad sometimes. And that's what I worry about potentially with Nashville. They brought in so many new faces. You wonder how it's going to mesh and how it's going to look. I know it's going to look disgusting for a lot of fans of other teams, like Vegas fans and Tampa fans and Dallas fans, when they see their guys in that yellow. But I just want to bring up that Wedgwood thing again, because if we see Scott Wedgwood start against Jake Oettinger, first, if that does happen, I'm going to write some stuff that I wasn't planning on writing tomorrow, because I have some funny stuff from talking to Scott and Jake this summer. But Sean also reminded us this morning that we would not only see Scott Wedgwood, we would likely see Matt Murray as his backup.
It's a good spot.
What a world we live in, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Sean.
I actually think one of the things that I like about Nashville a lot is I really like the way Andrew Burnett runs that team. I really like the way they attack on the forecheck. I like the way they, within the NHL, a lot of teams are very similar on the forecheck. I think Nashville is, now they're not Carolina intense, but I think they are a little bit unique compared to the norm. So they're a very hard team to prep for. The way they attack on the forecheck, the way they cut lanes a little bit differently especially with F2 coming in. We should do a video on this. This would be fun.
Yes.
But like, I find Nashville is a very fun team to watch. I think they have a lot of guys that play that system really well. And I think we talked about top players buying in. Stamkos, Marchessault, while they're not going to be – Marchessault will, but while Stamkos is not a guy who's going to be burning down on the forecheck and killing teams that way, I think they bring some of that finishing ability to a team that was already going to be very efficient and annoying to play against. So I think it's kind of you have a system in Nashville that works for all four lines. Now you just add some more firepower and actual finishing. So I don't think it's as much about meshing. I think it's more about can they basically finish and do the job they're paid for? Because then they do that, all of a sudden Nashville becomes a very scary team for me. Not just I think it's a really fun opening matchup for Dallas for me to watch, because it's two teams where, like, we talked a lot about with the Stars. We've talked all about, who's Miro going to play with the defense, everything like that. Right off the bat, the Stars defense are going to be, and those pairs are going to be tested by this Nashville forecheck. It's going to be a really fun matchup to watch tomorrow night.
I also think credit to Barry Trotz. I mean, head coach turned
general
manager.
100%.
You know, that he made a comment when he took that job over or accepted that role, that he wanted a more of an exciting team. And I think that's being in Nashville for so long, acknowledging the fans that watched a style of play and just felt, this still is the entertainment business. I'm going to try to bring in a couple more players and score some more goals and just raise that level a bit. And he's done that, and he's done it with some guys that could be Hall of Famers. We'll see if they're, if the road is very short for these guys as far as their careers go. But I think when the player is motivated to kind of ram it up somebody's butt at the other end of the tunnel there, that he may get a good season and a half out of these guys.
Yeah, it's funny, Sean, what you just said with the teams. It's almost like Dallas was so skilled offensively, so good. They thought they needed to get a little bit harder to play against. We talked about that a bunch. Nashville's so hard to play against and so good on the forecheck. They need to get a little bit of the actual scoring finish. So it is a really interesting contrast to your point to watch tomorrow.
So I'm going to throw out a couple of names, and you guys can go dealer's choice here.
Ready?
Jake Gensel now with the Tampa Bay Lightning. The New Jersey Devils, of course, the big acquisition is Jacob Markstrom, but also they picked up Brett Pesce from Carolina, Brendan Dillon from Winnipeg. Vancouver now has Jake DeBrusk, played a long time for the Boston Bruins. Seattle, who we saw yesterday play in the afternoon, picked up Brandon Montour from the Stanley Cup champion Panthers. They also signed Chandler Stevenson from the Vegas Golden Knights. Utah last night made their debut. We'll talk about them in our next segment. Mikhail Sergachev, huge offseason ad to bring him from Tampa Bay. We have a Jeff Skinner sighting. He's in Edmonton now, as he continues to be, I believe, the longest tenured NHL player not to play a playoff game. The Washington Capitals, we were talking about Ovechkin, traded for Logan Thompson. They also picked up Jacob Chychrun, the defenseman that went from Arizona to Ottawa and now to the Capitals. Chicago picked up Teravainen from the Hurricanes, as well as Tyler Bertuzzi. We talked about Patrick Laine's knee injury, but he was a big change going to Montreal from Columbus. The Bruins picked up the big man, Nikita Zadorov. We know about the Chris Tanev to Toronto, but Toronto also picked up Oliver Ekman-Larsson as well as our old buddy Yanni Hakanpää. Interesting one with the Islanders going after Anthony Duclair, because here's another team with another group saying, well, I wonder if we can get his skill set funneled in the right direction. Of course, the Dallas Stars did a whole bunch with Dumba, Lyubushkin, Brendan Smith, Casey DeSmith. St. Louis was busy with those 2 offer sheets, as well as Ryan Suter and Radek Faksa from the Stars. Carolina, Sean Walker, Shane Gostisbehere, as they had to fill the holes. They lost a couple D, including Pesci. Cam Talbot is now a Detroit Red Wing. Darcy Kemper is now in goal for the LA Kings. Ilya Samsonov was in Toronto, now with Vegas. Riley Smith with the New York Rangers. There's my list, guys, of ones that were particularly notable. Bloody, any of those stand out to you?
Could I hear him again?
Touche.
I missed. I wasn't paying attention. I missed. I was checking the last shift on the iPad to make sure.
Yeah, your
Well, it's too bad you
Wi-Fi
hadn't
cut
called
out.
up your read from the last segment.
Yeah, that's
Right
why.
back.
That's why I had to rewatch it back. It was really
Right
rough
back,
the second
eh?
time. It was even worse the second time.
I think that
I said that with my mouth the other day. Now John's got the real sound on.
sounds like a personal problem.
Hey.
I think that with our 2 goalies here, you guys may be thinking the same way, but I think of all of those players that you mentioned, which I only remember like 3 or 4 of them, I'm gonna go with Jacob Markstrom. I think that team in New Jersey has the firepower, and I don't think they've ever really had that guy in the net. The guy in the net since Brodeur left, I don't know if they've ever had that guy. So I'm gonna say that I think he may have the biggest impact of all of those guys on one team and one player. So I'll go with Markstrom from New Jersey.
Yeah, I was actually going to pick the Devils as well with that goaltending.
Well, of course you.
But I will no.
Devils.
Well, yeah. Well, the important, just as important, not just as important, but equally, whatever you want to call it, is Jake Allen behind Markstrom as well. They believe they have 2 guys who can significantly improve their goaltending from last season, and pretty much every season besides the 1 year that Vanacek was the only other goalie to get 30 wins since Brodeur. But I think that is huge there. But I also want to say last night, you just mentioned the 2 offer sheet guys. They both look great for St. Louis in that comeback win last night. Broberg scored a goal.
They didn't look good at the start of the game.
No, they did not.
No.
But Broberg
Binnington
scored a goal, and Holloway had an assist. And I think that it's just funny to see. Every year I always say this, that guy's on that team. You watch the first game. Oh, interesting. That guy's on that team. So this is a good way to get ready for that.
This segment, which I wrote just sort of new faces, new places. It could be that guy's on that team.
Yeah.
So, Sean, what about you? Of that whole list, anybody particularly stand out that these 2 haven't already mentioned?
To me, it's Sergachev in Utah, because I think Sergachev has been a player who has been. It's very easy to be number 2 behind Victor Hedman, right? Like when Victor Hedman is the guy in front of you and the guy who carries all of the pressure and the responsibility, it's easy to ride. It's easy to be that second guy on a defensive core. When all of a sudden you come in, you're the guy making $8.5 million. You're the guy playing in every responsibility. Can you prove that you are what everyone thinks you are when you were drafted? And to me, if I think I'm a big believer, I really like Sergachev's game a lot. Even I know he's dealing with the injury, he's coming off the injury stuff and everything too from last year. But to me, him going to Utah and them basically completely rebuilding their defense. I mean, they had no defenseman signed on like July 2nd, or they had no defenseman like before the draft. They had like 0 NHL defensemen under contract, so they basically had to rebuild it all in like a span of 2 weeks. And Sergachev is to me the one where if that Utah team is going to be in the playoffs, and I think they are going to be in contention, it's going to be largely because Sergachev is going to claim that role as I am a legit number 1 defender. And one of the hardest things I think to get in this league is a number 1 that you can trust and can actually carry you. The Stars obviously have one in Miro. We talk about him all the time. But you look at teams that win cups, you look at teams that contend, what do they always find? They always find that guy who is the number 1 defender who, when the season gets toughest, we can have them out there 28, 29 minutes a night. And if Sergachev can be that guy, I think Utah has the best. Now, obviously, you guys hit on kind of the one I was going to take with Markstrom in New Jersey. But after that, to me, in Utah with Sergachev, that's a big one for me. And it's one of the reasons you watched that game last night. Like, they crushed Chicago, what was it, 5-2 or whatever. Like, that is an overall team effort of dominance. But that team to me is going to be, it's going to be a lot of flair. If they can have that stable number one, they will be in a really good spot. I think they might have it now.
I want to put one guy out there that wasn't on your list. Not a player, though, that I think will have an influence on his team in the long run. That's Craig Berube in Toronto. I talked about it before. I just think there's a different mindset there. I'm going to be very curious to see how he gets that group of superstars, 4 or 5 of them on that team, to maybe buy in and play not a different style, but to buckle down a little bit. Again, not a player, but I'm very curious to see how Craig Berube does. Probably more curious to see how many guys actually buy in on that club. And his sell over the last couple of months or 3 months, whatever, being there, meeting with all the players, how he can change maybe the way, because it takes me back to when Ken Hitchcock came in here. He had a sell that he had to sell some guys on to play to win. We saw what happened in Florida. Paul comes in, Maurice comes in there. He had said, I remember listening to his conference the day that he got there, and one of the reporters asked him, Coach, how long do you think it's going to take before this team buys in to the way that you want them to play? And his answer was 62 games. I don't know where he came up with that. I was watching that game, and I listened to the press conference on the radio show, and then tuned in every once in a while because I'm a big fan of his. Never met him before, but I like the way he goes about his business. And then I was like, oh my God, this is game 62. I remember him saying this, and I felt it was a completely different style of hockey that they were playing. Now again, he didn't win anything that year, but over time it paid off. So that's where I'm curious how it works out in Toronto.
We are going to get into our NHL news and notes, which we have a lot and, of course, not enough time, in our very next segment right here on the DLLS Dallas Stars Podcast.
Let's talk about the DLLS Dallas Stars and all other amazing podcasts at all DLLS. When you become a diehard, you can upgrade your fandom. You get a free shirt when you sign up, and a free shirt every year after that. You can bank them. You can use them whenever you want. Pick whatever shirt you want across all the teams, all the podcasts. Hopefully that shirt collection just continues to grow and we get more and more pictures of Luds on the front of a t-shirt, because that's what we need. You get access to our premium diehard content. That includes articles that are behind the paywall, which now that we can do video and articles, we will definitely be doing that. Sean already has a couple great film room articles up there. We will be doing that
getting that weekly
throughout the season. Yep, we're going to get that weekly from Sean. I'll be using video as much as possible, just trying to bore you guys to death with hockey stuff. But you can upgrade to that. You can have no ads on the articles as well, so they'll look even more fresh and clean for you. You get 20% off all merch and events. You get your own diehard member card, and you get access to the damn Discord lounge. You can write in the chats and in the Discord about buying me pants and things like that don't worry, I'm seeing and appreciate the knowledge. I was told originally we were in the podcast room today, so I was wearing shorts, but it's another story. Anyway, upgrade your diehard access.
How many super chats would it take to buy Sam pants?
There it is. Okay.
Well, it depends on how much you spend per super chat. Ardell says at least 3.
I have underwear on today.
You're showing your feet, though.
Moving on.
Hey,
speaking of showing your feet, Luds is literally barefoot right now with his legs sticking out. How come you guys don't talk about him?
His are very well positioned right behind the coffee table. He knows what he's doing,
and it's a little different than my gonads popping out. Okay,
good point.
Gonads.
By the way, I just want to, as we're now in through, I believe our 6th week or so of doing this, maybe longer. I've lost track already. We have listeners from the U.S. and Canada, of course, but we also have at least a handful based on downloads from Australia, the United Kingdom, Sweden, Switzerland, Bangladesh, Finland, Guatemala, Iran, Italy, Turkey, Argentina, Germany, India, and Hong Kong, just to name a few.
You know what's missing from that list?
What's that?
The dude in Iraq, ALLCITY, the prime minister. I'm waiting for my dinar to revalue. You said he was one of our guys from Iraq.
Yeah. Nope, not today. But hey, if you are one of these people, we want to hear from you. You can tweet us at DLLS_stars. You can hop in the chat here on the YouTube broadcast. Or if you're already a diehard, let us know in the Discord where you're listening from. All right, NHL news and notes segment. There's a lot. We don't have enough time to get to everything, but let's start with the season officially opened last night for the Florida Panthers as they raised a banner after winning the Stanley Cup. Then they really took it to the Boston Bruins, almost coughed it up late as they got a little loose, but they had a big lead. And so even though the Bruins didn't look very good, I mean, starting Korpisalo was a great idea, John, but Florida Panthers get their Stanley Cup banner. It was a pretty good scene down in South Florida. And I remember looking at that going, it wasn't that long ago, they were the butt of a lot of attendance jokes.
Yeah, the Rats. I remember going all the way back to the Rats on the ice when they got down the road there. And wasn't there some professional golfer that was wearing some cone on his head?
That would be Brooks Koepka.
Yeah, it would be. And, so, yeah, they've kind of taken a beating. But, again, who gets the last laugh? And now look at the building. Look at where all the players want to go live. Hopefully everybody's doing okay there. I mean, there's some weather problems there, Tampa Bay and both all of Florida. So hopefully everybody's going to make it through that thing. So, yeah, I think when you raise that banner and you get that cup and you kind of put all of those people that weren't there, all the feelings that they had in the organization and the players and not having fans in the building, you really put it in the rearview mirror. Now, and then you look at the way they came out last night. I mean, talk about on a night you want to show that you're back to where you were. You don't expect that kind of stuff, especially some of the parties that you have. And I remember the coach talking a couple of days ago, and they said all of their testing from all their players were all better than they were last year. And so that just means there's a commitment to maybe go back and do it again.
Motivated.
And Sean, we got a little contract news yesterday from Florida as Carter Verhaeghe signed a 8-year, $56 million contract extension. That's a $7 million AAV. He will be with the Panthers for the long run.
Yeah, that's a good piece. That's someone who has been you have to make your decisions who you're going to lock up and where you're going to keep building your core. And to me, that's a good long-term bet by Florida. I'm keeping it quick so we can get as much as possible.
All right, next one. Let's go with Utah because that was a heck of a scene at the Delta Center as they had their first ever NHL game hosting the Chicago Blackhawks. They won that game. The ESPN crew was staked out there all day as they were broadcasting the two other games before.
Except for Ray Ferraro, who did the first game in Seattle and then flew there, which is crazy to think the 700-mile trip after doing a full game to do another one.
First guy to do two NHL broadcasts in the same day in different states or cities or whatever.
Crazy.
Outside of going from New York to New Jersey or something short like that. How about the Utah reception? The building, honestly, it felt like a playoff atmosphere, not a regular season. Even an opener, that place was just buzzing for hockey.
I think it was brilliant the way that they had all the games scheduled yesterday. I mean, everybody was kind of baffled about the game starting early in the afternoon, but you have an expansion team, a recent expansion team. You have a Stanley Cup team, and then you have the new team. So I thought it was smart the way that they scheduled all the games. And it was a great atmosphere, as we expected. I think all the expansion teams do an incredible job, or any new teams, they do an incredible job about getting them, taking the plane off on their first game. So, and it kind of works out for them. They win the hockey game. And so you get a chance to see what you have there. The fans are loving it. I don't know about all the seats in the building, but, they talked a little bit about the seats but it's kind of work in progress as far as the building goes, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be, 2-3 years of renovations there, Sean?
Yeah, but even though there's 5,000 obstructed seats, there's 8,000 unobstructed seats, which is 3,000 more people than could view a game in Arizona.
Yeah, and honestly, even with the flaws in the current stadium in Salt Lake City, it still feels like an NHL building compared to what they were doing at Arizona State.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. The thing I liked, I just want to touch on something Lud's brought up just about the schedule yesterday. To me, sometimes there's things that happen that I hope we take and then find ways to copy into the future. So yesterday, that Seattle game started at 1:30 local time there, and that's a 1:30 local start. And I don't think we need to be doing daytime games every single daytime weekday games all the time, but I do think the NHL should look at that as this is how this can be a success. If Major League Baseball for the playoffs can go do a full slate of games starting during the daytime, schedule some more games like that. So I'm every time I have an opportunity to say we should have some more afternoon hockey, I'm going to push for it. So more afternoon hockey, please. So,
well, and we usually get brunch for pregame meals at arenas when they're day games. So I'm always a fan of that.
but you think food is driving any of this? Food is driving this?
Wow, there's always food involved.
I'm going to interrupt you.
You may.
I know Sean loves this, but I want to talk lines for 1 second because the Stars had practice today, and
Sean just
the
left.
only
There you go.
important
He just left.
the only
Awesome. You
important part of
literally
this,
drove him out of the show.
the Stars practice in Nashville. The important part here is that they did actually do something we didn't think they would do, which is have Stankoven up on that top line with Robertson and Hintz. The Marchment, Duchesne, Sagan line stays together. Dodonov goes with Ben and Johnston in the middle on that other line, and then the Steele, Beck, Blackwell line stays together. So the difference there, we assume maybe Beck just jumps up and Steele switches with him. Looks like they made some more changes than we got Stankoven on the top line, which I know Luds and I were pretty excited to see. And then Johnston down on that line with Ben again instead of Steele.
I wondered if they would just stick with moving Dodonov to play with Hintz and Robertson and keep the Ben Johnson Stankoven together from last year. But I think they want a guy like Stankoven to give him a try on the top line. Don't you?
I told you, he's the motor. He's going to create. I just think he creates more coming into the offensive zone. And when you've got Hintz and Robo there, you've got guys that can translate what he does and puts pucks at the net, digs pucks out of the corner. I think you have a better opportunity for goals to go in the net with that trio.
Sean, are you going to defer to other news so you don't have to talk about lines?
I mean, you guys did a great job talking about lines.
All right, so let's go with the coincidence. I don't think so. Linus Ullmark this morning signed a 4-year, $33 million extension with the Ottawa Senators. Why is it not just a coincidence? The AAV, $8.25 million. Sean, how much was Jeremy Swayman's deal for again?
I think it was also $8.25 million. We should probably ask the producer on that. He might know that.
And didn't Ullmark play on the Bruins?
I believe they were teammates and tandem buddies for a long time.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Hugging buddies.
That one is not.
That was a great hug celebration.
That one's not going to age as well because it doesn't have enough time to age, right? Like the Swayman one is going to be at 8.25. It's going to, as the cap goes up, it's actually not going to be that bad in 4 to 5 years. The Ullmark one, I've talked to some people who work in the NHL goalie space who are a little bit worried about seeing him in Ottawa this year behind a team that's less structured and seeing him exposed a bit. And as he's older than Swayman, and as things go too, I think that's not I don't see how that might not have enough time to age properly. That might be one where it might be a bit of a mistake. Either way, the person who is very happy today because goalies are getting paid all over the place, and ones that are worse than him is Jake Oettinger. I mean, Joey Decord got 5 years times $5 million today.
Yep.
And the fact Joey Decord's a great story and how he's done things and everything like that. But I mean, this is one where if Jake Oettinger and his agent can go and look and say, Joey Decord's making $5 million a year. Joey Decord made more than me, is going to make more than I'm making this year. Like, it's my job to tie things back to the Stars because Jake Oettinger is going to get a huge paycheck next summer now.
Agreed.
Couple last little quick hits that we should probably spend more time on, but Sean, really cool yesterday to see the early game because not only did they announce that Jordan Eberle will be the captain of the Seattle Kraken, so now every team has a captain, but also that Jessica Campbell became the first female coach to work on an NHL bench in a game as the assistant coach for the Kraken alongside new head coach Dan Bilesma, and that was really cool to see her break that barrier.
Yeah, no, that was really cool to see. It was kind of funny. One of the things for me, just on a personal level, so my daughter has just started playing hockey on like a team level for the first time. She's 6 years old and started playing, and we were at her practice. She went to her practice yesterday. We got back for her practice, and I put the game on TV. And it was kind of cool because it was it's the first time I've ever been able to, I paused the TV the first time I've ever been able to pause the TV on an NHL game and point to my daughter and say, look, hey, there's a woman coaching an NHL game. So pretty, that's kind of one of those real life examples to me where if someone's accomplished enough to coach and they're the right candidate, they should be the right candidate. The other stuff shouldn't matter. And before we go too far down the list, do you guys want to make fun of my predictions so we have it on the record here, just since we never got to that?
Yeah, let's do it. Oh, actually, no. Yeah, I want to make fun of something else, and then we'll finish with your picks.
Oh, so, yeah, just give me a whole list of things to make fun of me on.
Okay, Sean.
I mean, I am deserving of it today.
We're gonna make fun of you in a minute, but this was something you shared with us because I didn't see it initially. And look, we gave a lot of praise to Utah for what they did in a short period of time in a great atmosphere but they did one thing that we saw in regards to one of their captains that I want you to tell Luddy about, because I think his reaction will be wonderful.
I know this. Yeah, but go ahead. Surprise me again.
He's already pissed.
Surprise me again.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yes. So the Utah Hockey Club, yes, that is the name of the hockey team right now, has named Lawson Krause the associate captain. And
what the hell does that even mean?
Isn't there more than isn't there?
Well, I mean, seriously, what does it mean?
Yeah. What is it? What does it mean? It means that our team is owned by a rich businessman who wants to throw financial terms into his team name. That's what it means to me.
We have associate coaches. It's a.
Why aren't you on a plane going out there and trying to figure out what that was all about?
Why? Because no, I'm not doing that.
Because we don't have enough super chats yet.
Yeah.
More super chats. We can send Sean out to find that out.
Is his A going to be like slightly slanted to the side,
No,
or
it's
like
going to be like in cursive,
in italic?
Like
yeah.
It's gonna be, and I get a stenographer on. So here's the thing: this is the second time this has been done in NHL history, from my understanding, and it's also still all very dumb. Nashville did this with Ryan Ellis in like 2017 or whatever, when Roman Josi was named captain. They named Ryan Ellis the associate captain. It's very dumb and stupid, and it should be made fun of. So I'll leave it at that.
All right.
Didn't Ryan Ellis get traded and never play again?
He's got hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, can I say one thing before we sign off?
There's a lot of one things going on here.
May I? Well,
Luddy doesn't need to be in practice today.
This one's a more serious one that I wanted to make sure I brought up. My former boss at NHL.com, Brian Compton, was recently diagnosed with MS, so I wanted to give him a shout out on the show. I will be posting his GoFundMe on Twitter right after this, so go and send support to him. My thoughts are with you, Brian.
It's hard to segue from that, which we certainly hope that things go in a positive direction for Brian, to then immediately making fun of Sean. So let's just let Sean give you his season predictions. We did it on the show on Monday. Sean doesn't want to be left out. We don't want him to be left out, because we are going to revisit those picks later on. Yes, Ardell, it was definitely a non sequitur. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, did I get a graphic or no? Is that I don't know. I just want me to just. Did we make graphics for this?
Would you like to see it? Yeah, put it up. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, put the graphics.
He's one of the team.
Yeah. There we go. So this is
Sean forgot his picks already, so he needs something to follow along with.
No,
kind
I
of a
couldn't
busy
read
board.
It's a very busy board, but it's up there, and I'm ready to read this one, unlike that ad read earlier. And I apologize to the fine folks at FOCO, who I'm sure will deliver on all your needs. I had my division winners, since this is a audio platform as well. People need to be able to listen to it, not just look at it. I had division winners. I had the Stars winning Central, Vegas winning the Pacific, the Rangers and Bruins winning their divisions out east, and then the playoffs out west. I had Colorado, Edmonton, Utah, Vegas, Winnipeg, Nashville, Dallas, Vancouver. That's not in a standing order. That's just an order I read them. And then out east, I had Florida, New Jersey, Toronto, the Rangers, the Bruins, the Hurricanes, and then both teams in Philadelphia, the Penguins and the Flyers, making the playoffs.
Both teams in Philadelphia, huh?
I said both teams in Pennsylvania.
No, he didn't.
Pennsylvania.
Let's go back to the audio. You definitely said Philly, but let's move on.
Whatever. And then I'm Edmonton winning the whole thing. So
let's see, the old Philadelphia Phantoms are going to make the playoffs as well, the Flyers this year.
I mean, they might. You never know.
Even though they play in Allentown now. All right. So, guys, what do you think of Sean's picks? Did you glaze over and lose all focus?
Did you see how busy that board was?
We've got one for you. Do you want to? Do you need to revisit yours?
I don't know.
There's yours.
Oh,
See?
wow.
Look at this. Look at how busy this stuff is. I didn't make those picks. Yeah, I probably would. I probably should.
Luds, normally I agree with you. I think that's very easy to read, though. I think this is just you. I mean, it's pretty laid out. It's got the logos instead of see, and that one's even prettier because it's got
the only one that matters
finally
is
a good-looking,
top one.
Finally
the top one is the only
good-looking
one that
guy in
matters
the top
on that
corner
whole board,
there.
isn't that?
And then the last one, just
that's the only one that matters.
Sean picked a different one.
Sean has the Oilers winning the Stanley Cup.
What do you think Joe Pavelski would say about that board?
Oh, come on, Luds. We were so close.
That's what happens when you go 9 minutes
I even
over.
ignored our GM Ben put up a chat trying to get us to say it, and I ignored it.
You'll be getting a pink slip.
I know he's going to let me know about it. Look at that. There was the chat from earlier.
It wasn't a super chat. We don't have to read it.
That's why I didn't say anything.
That's why we were good. Thanks,
We
Luds.
almost had it. Well, hey, thank you very much, Sean, for being here today. Believe you get your dealer's choice of one of the games this week. Do you have any idea whether we'll have you tomorrow, Saturday, or Sunday?
Probably going to be Sunday, just from the perspective of Saturday is Yom Kippur, and that is a family holiday for me. So Sunday will probably be the day I will be in.
So this will be fun for the show. If Sean has something come up Sunday and can't, if he's leaving it to the last show of the week, do we get an extra appearance or do we get to kick him off a show?
I don't know. I haven't been paying attention.
I know.
left.
That's all right. We lost both of you minutes ago.
Yeah.
All right.
Sunday.
Ready for hockey.
Sunday.
All right. Well, the season
Sunday.
for the Stars gets underway tomorrow as they will play their first game in Nashville at Bridgestone Arena against the Predators. We will be there for the pregame show, which I believe starts at 6:15. The game's at 7, but we're going to go 6:15 to 6:45 pregame show. Check your calendars and your clocks. And then we will, of course, be here for the full postgame show right after the game. It is not a Victory Plus broadcast. This is a national game on ESPN Plus and Hulu, so you cannot hear Josh and Razor on the TV side, but they will be on the ticket on the radio side. And then we will be able to watch on ESPN Plus, and we'll talk to you all about that. We will not have a show on Friday. Just a quick reminder, as we have games Saturday and Sunday, both at the AAC. Go ahead, Sean.
Which means for all of our fine listeners, I'm trying to redeem myself slightly here. The only true Dallas Stars pre- and post-game coverage you can get that goes well with the viewing experience are these three fine gentlemen right here. That is the only way you can actually preview these games and wrap them up.
Talking about me?
Is by yes, you too, Sam. Sam included somehow.
Yes, the only pregame show in Dallas will be ours tomorrow for the Stars.
You're right there. Yeah, everyone else is dropping the ball. DLLS is the only place that from game one is focusing on covering this team all year long, and I say that rather confidently.
I love it. All right.
Okay, you're back in. You're back in, Sean.
He's allowed back in the circle.
Thank you to our high school intern, Sean Shapiro, for being here today.
Who's probably enjoying his Chicken Express food in the press box. Well, thank you very much to our producer, John Anderson, and for everybody for tuning in. For Sean, Craig, Sam, I'm Owen. We will be here tomorrow night for Stars against Predators. Game 1 of 82. Let's get it going. So long, everybody.
We all silly like the mayor.